It's been 100 days since President Trump took office, and there are many wins to celebrate. The key to winning has been and will continue to be from the resistance. Lori Colley, the praying citizen, returns with her new headline analysis from biblical perspectives. And Sheriff Mack is here with reaction to Trump's aggressive actions to actually enforce the law and so much more. The news you need to know, but with solutions and hope. This is Get Free with Christy Lee. Now, if we're honest with ourselves, many of us have felt like we could take a bit of a sigh of relief once President Trump secured his win, but we've quickly learned we can't let our guard down. Evil has seemed to escalate as the darkness is exposed. So our fight, it's only just beginning. Lori Colley returns to break down what's happening and how to pray about it. Colley writes and produces Praying Citizen newsletter to keep patriots and truth seekers updated on current events. With her husband, Bob, they sort through the noise and nonsense to provide excellent content and prayer points on politics and culture. So welcome back, Lori. Thanks for being with me today.
Thank you. It's pretty exciting. The 100 days flew by. I don't know about you, but I didn't think on one hand we'd get so far, but then on the other hand, people would be so mad and want to stop what Donald Trump is doing. So it's kind of this dichotomy of they're not, well, there's one guy trying to impeach him right now, but they're not attacking him as much personally, but those judges, just everything is, I can't even keep up. I follow a couple of lawyers like Margot Cleveland, and they can't keep up. So one of the things I think that the enemy does with this is he wears us out, right? Because we just, I think we, at some point we're like, well, when do we get to just kind of rest a little bit? But it's not going to be for a while. And, I just think we're in a 4-year, at least, battle. And, scripture reminds us, submit yourselves, therefore, to God, resist the devil, and he will flee. So he's eventually going to flee. And then, we're taking up the whole armor of God that we may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, just keep standing. And so I've got some stories of people that have done that and have been resisting and standing, and it's working. And it's working in the area of culture, which, sometimes you go out in public and you're not really sure the person you're talking to, what their whole deal is, who are you? And, you've got all these mixed signals. That's a guy, it's a girl. I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking at. And so I think something to keep in mind is that the enemy, he knows his time is short, right? So he's trying to throw everything that he can at us, but he only has so much of an arsenal. So he keeps using the same tactics over and over again. And one thing that they're doing with culture is they're trying to bring queer theory and education into our schools. And if they can't get it in the schools, they'll do it through these day camps. Mm-hmm. So there's this one in Colorado. I've got the image. If you could just put that.
Of course, it's in Colorado. Of course.
Of course. So it's this poster, this summer camp poster. It's justice rooted camp to help young people navigate their changing bodies in this changing world. So, okay, that sounds not terrible. It's for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. But some of the things we'll learn is bodies beyond the binary. So in other words, nobody is all male or all female. It's you're some mixture. And then if we drill down into some of their literature, they're going to be teaching these children everything related to sex, bodies, sexuality, sexy feelings, media, power, and justice. And there's the poster, and it's free. Of course, it's free. the theme is there's no wrong way to have a body as long as nothing hurts. You get to use your
Yeah.
body as you wish. I mean, it's just a mother's nightmare, right? So I think what they're doing with these camps, and they've been around for a while, they have a two-pronged strategy. So one is indoctrination, and then they use it for research. If you look at who's sponsoring this thing, well, it's the University of Colorado is one of the sponsors because they want to take this and then they have their, lesbian studies or whatever is paying for the camp. And then they're also, if the kids complete these surveys, one at the beginning to see how they feel about sharing their feelings with their significant others, their caregivers. And then if they fill it out at the end, they get a $150 gift card. So who's hosting it besides the university would be Planned Parenthood. And I think, I don't know why nobody's ever said this is why we do it, but they want to get the kids comfortable with Planned Parenthood, with going to Planned Parenthood to get puberty blockers, and then one day go have an abortion because now these children have been implementing all of these, misuse of their bodies. So let's go to this clip, and they explain these. First of all, this girl looks like she's about 10, but I guess she's an adult. These surveys, and I think you can let your imagination wander and see what they're actually, it's the indoctrination, and then it's like, well, how can we improve on this next time? And we use the surveys and these poor little kids that are guinea pigs to give us information.
We did ultimately decide that the official name is Sex Ed Summer Camp because we want to kind of start to disrupt this idea of it being something that we shouldn't be talking about or like uncomfortable to share. We are going to have pre-surveys and post-surveys. And so some of the questions will be like, hey, like how comfortable are you talking to your caregiver, or vice versa for the caregiver, your young human, about sex, bodies, and relationships. And then throughout the 2 weeks, we will then ask a similar question at the end and see how that changes.
I mean, to her credit, she's very bold about it. We were like, well, we just decided we'd name it because we're trying to tear down this construct. I mean, it does blow my mind the minute you were able to show what that poster looks like. It blows my mind that there's any parent that it's like, yeah, that looks like a good thing I want to send my kid to. I don't get it. I have 5 kids, and if I ever saw something like that, I'd be like, yeah, they should definitely go to a camp about sex, and then like her just saying right there that it's like they want them. It's just so wild. Like, so, it used to be like stranger danger and like, don't ever make an adult make you feel uncomfortable. Now they're like, well, yes, we should totally have kids be talking to adults about sex. Like, I get it.
Yeah, it's all I can think of is maybe when they first came out with the drag queen story hours and Coca-Cola was sponsoring one in Atlanta. I was like, I couldn't understand it. And then this one, I think, well, maybe a parent needs daycare in the summer, so maybe the kid goes to vacation Bible school one week and sex camp the next. But yeah, I don't get it. And did you notice how she changed the language? She called the kids young humans or campers, and the parents are caregivers. A caregiver. I think, yeah, I don't get that. And then later on, they talk about, the innocence of a child is ridiculed as being patriarchal and a social construct, which means if you can construct it, then you can destruct it and build something completely different. And so one of the other things I was like, what? So this thing counts as media literacy, which apparently is how to see things on media and filter through and find your way through the messages that are coming across on the media, which to me says if you've got people that are saying abstinence or sex is, preserved for marriage, then they're going to be teaching the kids how to filter through that. And so that's media literacy. And then because they call it critical thinking and communication skills, and then they're giving them medically accurate information, which goes way beyond what anybody's comfortable even discussing with adults. So their final goal is to be steeped in justice. So you break all the societal constructs down and you build it back so that it's justice. And I guess justice means there aren't any norms anymore. It's just all whatever weird thing you want to do is fine. And so it's just exploiting these children. So here's this next clip. It's part of the same video put out by Sharona Bishop. And this is another one of these young women explaining more about this camp.
During our media day, we're going to create a piece of media that actually sends the messages about consent and bodies and relationships. One of the most exciting things about this camp is that we get to root it in justice. Being rooted in justice means that our conversations really center around there's no wrong way to have a body. As long as nothing hurts, everything about you is amazing, and you get to decide what you do with your body and what you don't do.
I'm surprised those videos are still out there, because they're so revealing. Now, we've seen this happen before. A couple of years ago, Kentucky had a sexy summer camp, and Minnesota had a s'mores sex education camp, and both of them were canceled because of lack of interest, which, hallelujah, praise the Lord. That just means parents are paying attention, and they're like, no way. But in Colorado, maybe they thought, they could get away with it. Jezebel News, I don't know if you've ever looked at that news site, but the name says it all.
Yeah.
So they blamed a right-wing harassment campaign causing those poor teachers to feel afraid with going ahead with the camp, and so they canceled it. And, I don't know what that means. Does that mean that when people say your words back to you, it's intimidating and you feel ashamed? Maybe that's a good thing. But when it all's said and done, no camp in Boulder, Colorado. And again, it was spread out there. Steve Bannon had Sharona Bishop on. Moms for Liberty was talking about it. It was all over X. And so they were very successful in getting rid of that. But I think these things are going to keep popping up because the left doesn't ever get tired of, they're just going to keep pushing and keep pushing. But what I think is kind of funny.
Just to pause there for a moment, because that's really rich that they're blaming a right-wing harassment campaign for the cancellation, because these are the same people that literally harass anybody they don't agree with and are the kings and queens of cancel culture. And that's just with their violence, their violence and their actual threats. Just recently had Michael Graves on. He's the former lead singer of Misfits, and he's been barely able to sing anywhere because they organize these like Trantifa type of things at places that he wants to sing at, and there's actual fear invoked. In this case, it's just as you said. It's libs of TikTok and Moms of Liberty and these others are just exposing their own words. That's all they're doing. They're just reposting and sharing what these people are saying. That's it. And that they consider harassment. It's wild, but don't think that we should lose out on the opportunity to just show. Even the way they of course, the way they define things is always muddled.
It always is. I was thinking about Jesus is the Word, right? And the Word was made flesh. So what do they always mess with? Language. They twist it, and so it's we can't even sometimes talk because one person thinks this word means this, and you might as well be speaking different languages because the left has messed with our language so much. I mean, even the fact that it's called Jezebel News.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, anyway, I thought as I was looking through some of this research, I found this 2020 review that looked into these camps and the sex, they call it CSE, childhood sex education or comprehensive sex education. And they found there's like almost no evidence that these things are effective at producing positive impacts on the participants, noting that in some cases, all this sex education led to increased sexual activity.
Which makes sense. I mean, if your goal is to make young humans, which are children, innocent kids, more comfortable with talking about sex, then of course they're going to become more curious, and they're also going to talk to each other more freely about it if they've removed the shame angle of it. We are created to, it's natural to be embarrassed or have shame when you talk about these kinds of things, but they're trying to remove that barrier, and in some cases, obviously it's successful at leading to an increase in sexual activity because they're removing or helping facilitate remove the natural shame and embarrassment.
Right. And what is their solution? Well, just more protected sex, and they don't just seem to think that that's even an issue. It would just be those of us who are still normal go, well, wait a minute, this is exactly the opposite of, as parents, we want to see happen with our children. So, okay, so there was another victory, and this was in the Supreme Court in the UK, the last place that I would think there would be a victory. They ruled that the term woman has a biological meaning, not a socially constructed meaning. Okay, so brilliant. Over time in Britain, the demands, I want to play this little clip. This woman who's a feminist explains that if you are polite in the beginning, some guy comes, he works with you and he's dressed like a female and he carries his purse and whatever, his high heels, you're going to be polite. You may not agree with it, but you're not going to be ugly to the person. You're just going to treat them with kindness. Well, when you keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and demanding that those guys get to use the bathroom with you and they get to, be in your locker room and all that, then your kindness level you get to the bottom of it. And you're like, you know what? I'm done. So that's what happened there. And she says that the trans movement asked too much of the British public. So this is a clip.
And then actually over time, people have hardened against the trans movement. And I think that's because the demands of trans activists have been so extreme, and it's become clearer over time just how extreme they are. And people have, when they've encountered this, they've thought, oh, hang on, now this is a bit crazy. Are we really claiming that a woman is anyone who says they're a woman? Are we really claiming that there shouldn't be any such thing as a female-only space? Do we eat photos of, obviously male athletes towering over obviously female athletes within the women's category have been seen worldwide? So I think that the trans movement asked too much of the public. It asked for people to deny the truth of their own eyes and ears. And at long last, at least in Britain and hopefully elsewhere too soon, that has been repudiated.
Yeah. Hope it happens here. But I don't know about our Supreme Court.
It's like, I mean, she's basically speaking to the slippery slope. Like, that's the danger of when you accept or get wishy-washy on one thing, like it's never going to be enough. And I mean, the whole time that we were talking about that previous subject, it just makes me so afraid, because it's very clear that they want to pave the way for young human and older human relationships. I mean, why else are you then trying to change the language from child to young human? Because you're trying to make it all relative. And so it's scary to also see what appear to be young women who are also heralding something that can lead to the victimization of children. Because I mean, ultimately that's what it goes back to. We're on this slippery slope of where they're trying to make it acceptable. They already basically do in California, trying to make it acceptable for there to be children and adult relationships. That's the depravity, but that's the road that we're on.
And that's the you can do anything you want with your body as long as it feels good, basically. So some groomer comes along and, hey, they can talk a kid into anything. They don't have the skills. Yeah. So all right. So then the next battlefront, and I think we're starting to crack it, is education and the DEI in businesses and in the military. So we know about that female helicopter pilot, right, that flew the helicopter into the jet in DC, and all those people were killed. So it came out yesterday that she had an officer sitting next to her. He had more time in the aircraft, and he was instructing her, but she outranked him. So he's telling her, you're flying too high. You're flying too high. And she refused to listen to his warnings, and they crashed into the commercial jet. So, it just puts. I don't know much about the military, but my son was in the Army, and I do understand. If you've got men and women together, and a guy's afraid of causing a problem for someone who's his superior officer, maybe he's not going to grab this, however a stick or whatever it is. He's not going to take the controls away from her because he doesn't want to get in trouble later because he's a guy and she's a female. Now, we don't know, I don't know what her thinking was and why she wouldn't listen to him. But you have, 68 people that are dead? I mean, it's horrific. And so, we've been saying this. I remember in the 80s, we were saying, don't put women in the military with men. It's not going to work. And I think this is an example of where it could have made a difference. And she wasn't willing to submit herself to a guy who was not as high of a rank as her. So we've got that. We've got DEI, is going to fail because it works against God's design. So and if we are sending our kids to school to learn math, science, and reading, and instead we're teaching them queer education theory, we're going to have issues. And so I hope your producer can bleep out this guy. But he's a teacher I think he's in Chicago, and he's completely blown away by how bad education is.
I thought y'all was lying to me on this app when y'all said that these kids didn't know nothing. These kids don't know shit. Like nothing, nada. They don't know basic math, like addition, subtraction, division, fractions, multiplication. They don't know none of that. And it is really sad. They can tell you what a gay person is, what's bisexual, what they did do, what kind of gun this is, who sang this song, the lyrics to that, and they know all of that. They know what studs and dykes is, but they don't know what basic math is. Parents, what are y'all doing? Y'all are failing y'all kids. It is not on these teachers. All that they're doing there is just talk, play around, horse around. Y'all got work to do. Like, I'm not understanding, and they don't even understand why they don't understand. And that's more confusing. Like, what?
Yeah. I mean, whatever you put in is what you're going to get out. And if you're putting queer education, queer theory in your kids, that's what you're going to get. And so you've got Mississippi, which was always at the bottom of the education ladder. Those kids are outperforming both New York and California in math. Just great. Good for Mississippi. In Chicago, just 11% of Black students can read at grade level. That's horrific. And the per student spending jumped by 70%, while the average teacher salary in Chicago is $100,000. Now, maybe they deserve it because they've got these children that are, impossible because they're unruly and they've got their phones. I don't know. It's got to be just a horrific. I don't know how we have anybody willing to teach anymore. So
no, I amen to that. I often think about that because the other trajectory I wanted to go in my career was possibly education. And I'm like, oh, I'm so thankful I didn't, just because let's not gloss over like how difficult the job is. And that's probably why they are getting slim pickings and why we have all these liberal activists in those roles, is because maybe there's not a lot of alternatives. Most people don't want to take up this task. But that case in particular, out of Chicago, this was the age old argument of like, oh, if you just give us more funding, we can have better outcomes. And I mean, to the tune of jumping the spending to 70% up with spending, and you got 11% of those students reading at grade level only. I mean, that sure blows that argument out of the water.
Does. And yet the school, the teachers unions run the city, just like Chicago's always been run by the unions. And they started out being run by the mafia, but that was back in the early 1900s. But anyway, so we've been reading too about medical schools that need overhauling. They enforce conformity to leftist ideologies, such as labeling all white men as racists or disconnecting gender from biological sex. You've got doctors being fired because they won't toe the line with affirmative action. They criticize it. They question gender surgeries on children. And then there was this one: if they're trying to help people lose weight, then they're being accused of fostering a culture of shame. So that whole thing needs an overhaul. And then there was this case, I don't know if you followed it, in Maryland, which is now with the Supreme Court. So you've got Muslim, Eastern Orthodox, and Christian parents bringing a lawsuit against a school district in Maryland because they will not allow parents to pull their kids out of, this gender ideology, this critical queer theory, right? It's taught during the regular school day, and it was becoming kind of a logistics nightmare. So they just said, all right, every kid's got to go through this grooming stuff. And the parents said, no, we are not going to do it. You need to let us pull our kids out. And so the Supreme Court is looking at it with this kind of funny that Ketanji Brown Jackson, she doesn't understand why you can't, you don't get to teach creation in school. So why can't, if they want to teach queer theory, then hey, they should be able to do that. I don't know if she's able to think.
It doesn't even make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. So, but it looks like even some of I think it was Elena Kagan, said, no, this is ridiculous. We have to have freedom in our schools. So we'll see what happens there. I think, they're listening to arguments now, and then they rule later over the summer at some point. So hopefully that one will, if we can't opt our kids out of some program at school, then, what kind of schools, then parents don't have any input in the education. Mm-hmm. It's all the unions, I think. Randy Weingarten. So, yeah. So, let's go ahead to prayer points. So I think sometimes we get lost in the battle and we forget the wins. So God keeps giving us wins. We keep having victories. So I think we have to continue to pray that people would keep waking up and keep recognizing the dangers, keep, not just watching CNN, but maybe looking a little further afield and seeing what the other side says. Pray that Christians will keep on top of things. If we don't, nobody will. So we've got to stand firm and resist the devil, and he will flee. And then also, all these activist judges continue praying that they will submit to the Constitution and rule in favor of our freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are excellent prayer points, and a good reminder of where we're at, that we're not out of the woods, that there's still an aggressive evil that's coming after even the most innocent among us. And so pray about those, and then, as you said, continue to praise God for this pause that we have, this opportunity, and I think it's a big one that we certainly don't want to waste. Well, thank you so much, Lori, for all of that incredible insight. If you want more of Lori Colley's prayer points when it comes to a more regular analysis of the news headlines, you can go to her Substack, Lori Colley at substack.com. And you can also follow on X, the account there. Isn't that at Bob Colley, isn't it, for the X account?
Yes, that's my husband. Yep. I lost my account, so I had to take his. I'm
sure people can relate to that. But yeah, thank you for the service that you're doing. I think it's so important to have a biblical worldview and an interesting angle here to start trying to look at things from a biblical worldview and ways to pray about them. So thank you for the service that you do. And we will definitely be having Lori Colley back. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, you bet. Up next, we have Sheriff Mack joining us. He's going to give a reaction to the sheriff tariff, his first 100 days, as well as, this new era we seem to be in, where we value law and order and enforcing the law that's already on our books. So we'll be getting into that in just a minute. But first, right now, MyPillow is having 2 sales in one. The first is a closeout sale on Percal bed sheets. You can get any size, any color, just $25. Queens, kings, split kings, cow kings, all just $25. 11 colors to choose from, and get them before they're gone. The second sale is a new energy drink. It's called Rev 7. It's a premium energy drink that is actually good for you. It tastes great, gives you energy all day, plus no sugar, no caffeine, so you're not going to experience those jitters or crashes that we've all been through with other energy drinks or other caffeine. It's made with Cognizant. That's what it's powered by, a premium nootropic that helps fuel your mind. It also has Go BHB, a primary ketone in your body that provides the most efficient and cleanest fuel ever. MyPillow is so confident that you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try all 3 of those delicious flavors. I had that introductory 3-pack, and wow, I was blown away by the green apple. I think that was my favorite. But all 3 of them are really good. You can try that absolutely free. Just when you order, do me a favor, go to mypillow.com and use promo code KL. So stock up on all your MyPillow favorites. Use promo code KL, get your percentage off, and it also helps support this show. All right, we're going to have a quick break to learn about another way to help you out, an investment potential that is the perfect timing for this, because we've got a Trump administration that loves energy, that's cutting the red tape there. So watch this, and we'll be back on the other side with our interview with Sheriff Mack. The world's smartest investors aren't buying oil stocks. They're collecting mailbox money from oil royalties instead. I'm talking about passive income that shows up month after month, starting with as little as $25. Visit ChristieOilBoom.com to discover how to tap into monthly royalty checks from America's most productive oil basin. You don't need to be wealthy. You just need a regular brokerage account. That's ChristieOilBoom.com to learn how you could start collecting oil royalty checks every month.
He is being treated no better or worse than anyone else. This is not selective prosecution, that this is not somebody who's singled out, that he is being treated just like anyone else. That is what it means to have a rule of law. That is what the Justice Department is really signaling and messaging here, is that everyone will be treated, as Merrick Garland has said, as equally in this country. This is really a great day for America. So there has been a violation here that we know for sure, and it is not the judge. Right, exactly. You don't do it. Even if you thought that there was a ground for doing this, the judgment call that you thought that this is the case to bring, it tells you everything. There is no adult in the room who would have said, "Are you kidding me? Why would you possibly do this?" And the answer is because we want to send a signal to the judiciary. And that's what you shouldn't be doing.
Oh, it tells us everything that we need to know watching those two clips back to back. So again, the Democrats are showing that it was perfectly fine to, in a completely unprecedented manner, target a former president, someone who is running for office, basically and practically cheer on his arrest and say no one is above the law. But now that there is a very clear and blatant violation of the law, obstruction of justice by judges, oh gosh, you can't go there. I'm interested to hear the sheriff's take on this. Sheriff Richard Mack is the legendary Arizona lawman who took on the feds and won a historic Supreme Court battle and is the founder of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. He's a 20-year veteran, NRA Hall of Famer, and defender of your rights, and he's here to drop some truth bombs. So let's go ahead and bring him in. Sheriff Mack, so glad to have you with me again. It's been too long, and the world's only gotten crazier.
For sure. Yeah, that was a great clip you just showed, Christy, and thanks for having me back. This is great to come back home on your network and the Lindell network. And you forgot something. My favorite Lindell product, the socks. I finally found comfortable socks. Thank you, Mike Lindell and My Pillow. Thank you. But they're great. I wear them all the time and work out in them and wear them just leisurely around the house and love it. I was shocked. I didn't know that he had socks, but I bought them immediately. Look, we've bought a lot of stuff: pillows, bed topper, mattress topper. What do you call those? The added little. Yeah, I think it's a topper.
Yeah, I think it's just a mattress topper.
Yeah, mattress topper. That's it.
And we've got the comforter. You got to make sure if you love lounge around the socks, I hope you have the slippers. Me and my husband, we have a matching set of.
I got slippers a long time ago. Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. Slippers was the first thing I think I ever bought from My Pillow. But the socks I rave about. And they have little red, white, and blue stripes at the very point of the toe. So it's very patriotic socks. But listen, great America. Yeah. Because finally, these crooked judges, the people that have been destroying our justice system the most in this country, like the judge in the Tina Peters courtroom, and numerous others. The judge that put Sam Girard, an Amish farmer, in prison for 6 years because he made a salve out of chickweed, and because he didn't get permission from the FDA. Yeah. We don't have a king FDA in Washington. Tell them all, abolish them all. But to send innocent people to prison is the absolute worst thing we could do in this country. And this Judge Dugan, there is obviously a violation here. And anyone taking someone who's already been convicted of other crimes and now is in the country illegally, this just goes to show we should have been conducting investigations against every single person in the Biden administration, including him and his wife and Kamala and Mayorkas, which there has been an investigation done on Mayorkas. It was a sheriff out here in Arizona, and it's still sitting on the county attorney's desk. But all of those people should have been investigated. No judge should be allowed complete immunity, no immunity at all, if you ask me. And if you commit a crime, then go do the time. And it's the best way to clean up America is go after crooked judges. Yes.
Well, I mean, and to that end, it seems like they should be held to an even higher standard and face even worse penalties, because these are the people that are supposed to be enforcing the law. They know better, and then they're blatantly violating it for an agenda. I mean, it's just disgusting, particularly in this case, that you have victims in the courtroom that were victims of a violent crime. And they're just waiting as they see the judge pull take this criminal out and let it. I mean, it's just the injustice all around is so infuriating.
Well, what do you expect from Washington, D.C. All these past years of the corruption? I just did a show a little while ago, just a half hour ago, and I've got to say, and I don't know if anybody else has said this line. I made this up. I've got to tell you though, if God doesn't strike down Washington, D.C., he owes Sodom and Gomorrah an apology. And I really mean that. I mean, it sounds a little bit flippant, but it's not. It's true. It's not sacrilegious. It's absolutely true. And Washington, D.C. is the most corrupt place on the face of the planet. I hope Trump can survive it. I said when he won, I said they're going to try to do to him exactly what they did the first 4 years of his term. And sure enough, they're trying to think that he's a Nazi, that he thinks he's a king, that anytime the Democrats can get in his way, they do. The liars in the media keep going after him and after him. There's a survey that just came out, I think this morning, that showed that the media went after him negatively 89% of the time. So far, the first 100 days, it's 92%.
Of course.
Of the mainstream media. Yeah.
Yep. And so they try and sabotage him with the
everything,
the lawfare. They try and sabotage him with the media, reporting misleading news. Their latest was trying to paint this deportation. Oh, they're deporting children. And Marco Rubio set the record straight there that no, children were not deported. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just adding some satire to that. It's just so absolutely absurd, because that was one of the Clintons' biggest statements, is for the children. And then the stupid book that Hillary puts out a book. It takes a village to raise a child. And like, she's an expert on that. And I'm just grateful that I was able to sue the Clintons, win at the U.S. Supreme Court, and live to tell about it.
Yes. Yes. So, and he is still not suicidal to this day. Just getting that in there.
No, I'm not. And I've told all my kids that, that I would never commit suicide. I might run away, but I would never commit suicide. No.
Yes.
But
I mean, we are. Yeah. I mean, the deportations is really one of his greatest achievements in the first 100 days, arguably. And so you have the pulse of the sheriffs because of the CSPOA and your group of sheriffs there. What is the sentiment of how they're feeling Trump's first 100 days in? Is there any more they feel like this administration should be doing, or are they pretty happy with how it's going so far?
They're pretty happy, especially something related to that. And I think the biggest success that Trump has had is securing the border. The border is secure, folks. Illegal immigrants trying to get into America is down over 95%. Mm-hmm. And that is, if you would have told me that would have happened within 60 days, which is where it really was at, and let alone 100, but that's a huge success. And so that's what I said from the beginning, and most sheriffs were saying, you've got to stop the bleeding at the border first, because if we send them back and they just come right back the next weekend, then we haven't really accomplished much. So the border is secure, and that had to happen first. It did, and now the deportations are working. And I said this from the beginning also, and most of the sheriffs realized that it was true, that the success of deportations really depends on the involvement of the sheriffs of this country. They know their counties better than anyone. They know where suspects are. They have people around the community in their posses and other people who want to help. So the eyes and ears of the community are the people themselves getting information to the sheriff. And I know for a fact that some of those sheriffs have notified Tom Homan as to where the cells are of some of these gangs in their counties, and it has worked. Are the sheriffs going on the raids? Not really, but they're ready to help if they need to. And they also have detention centers known as county jails where they can detain these people and hold them for a while until ICE can get them back or take them to prison. And some of these people do need to go to prison. And I don't want it to be where some of these people really commit heinous acts of murder and rape and child molestations, and that they don't serve time before they're deported. So if they go to Guantanamo Bay or El Salvador, great. They should be punished. And this message needs to be loud and clear. If you break the law, you will go to jail, instead of like the Biden administration will give you free housing, free education, free food, jobs, phones, and a debit card with thousands of dollars on it. No, we don't do that with criminals, Mr. Biden. We take you crooks to jail, and Biden and his family should still be investigated. And I would really like to see that the audit of the gold in Fort Knox still be completed.
Yes, absolutely. But because Trump has been so bogged down with having to face the resistance and all of the efforts to sabotage yet another one of his administrations, it is a great time to remind folks that are watching to get involved, to get to know your sheriff, to make sure that you go to cspoa.org, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. Sign up. It brings the citizens, law enforcement, sheriffs, and everyone together so that we can all work together and be more effective. You can actually be part of Trump's army if you're a fan of what he's doing, but make sure that you do before you stop watching this. Do it right now, cspoa.org. And we'll talk about that again in a moment. But wanted to ask you about something that you seem to have been critical of, the Trump administration pushing the real ID. Is that something that you are in fact critical of?
I am critical of it. And not only because of the video that Ron Paul put out about it, how it really was going after way too much information and monitoring citizens. But it passed in 2005, and I don't trust the president back in that day. I think it was it Bush? I think it was Bush. But it doesn't matter. I don't trust any of the presidents back there. And this was a takeoff from the Patriot Act. My Supreme Court decision prohibits the federal government from shoving this down our throat. Can I read that to you real quick?
Yeah, of course.
But look, I'm still with Trump all the way. He doesn't know about this decision, but they need to. They really do need to. So Justice Scalia wrote this decision, and again, and I've told you this before in your show, this is the most powerful 10th Amendment decision in the history of our country. It's a state sovereignty case. It's a local autonomy case. And he quoted the decision in 1992 of New York v. U.S., where New York beat the federal government on a states' rights issue. Quoting, "We have held, however, that state legislatures are not subject to federal direction." End quote. Well, if the state legislatures are not subject to federal direction, then the DMV is not subject to federal direction. And so then he finishes with this. "The federal government, we held, may not compel the states to enact or administer a federal regulatory program. The Real ID Act is a federal regulatory program." And then in the order of the court, I'll finish with this. One little sentence, maybe two little sentences from Justice Scalia. This is the order. of the court in the Mac Prince case, the only time sheriffs sued the federal government and won. The federal government may neither issue directives requiring the states to address particular problems, like a new driver's license, nor command the state's officers or those of their political subdivisions to administer or enforce a federal regulatory program.
Wow.
So I would like to get this in front of President Trump and just let him know this Real ID Act, first, is not necessary, but secondly, it violates the Supreme Court decision, the only time sheriffs sued the federal government and won. They cannot tell us what to do.
Because of that, you feel like we still have time to challenge this. The flip side of that is it is going to be like the Patriot Act did. It's going to play on people's emotions. Like, we've got to get our elections figured out. We need a ID that can be trusted, and so it plays on those emotions. So, do we have an opportunity to challenge this? Like, even if it does get enacted, and two, what's the alternative to demanding that we have appropriate ID verification for elections?
Well, yeah, and it doesn't need to get into the DNA and the retina scanning and monitoring all of us and using these as if it's going to save us from illegal aliens getting driver's licenses. It's not. The states have got to take a hold of this, and that's another place where sheriffs have got to stand up and be counted. Don't allow illegal aliens to get driver's licenses in your communities, and tell the state they can't do it either, and start arresting people, investigating people, and holding them accountable who give these to illegal aliens. They're not supposed to. And that allows them to get registered to vote very easily. So, look, illegal aliens can still go into a DMV and get these. All they have to do is show their current driver's license and something that came in the mail as a bill or something similar. That's all they need. So this isn't stopping it.
Yeah. That's an excellent point that we all should dig into a little bit further, because I think that you make a very compelling argument there. I only have a couple more minutes with you already, Sheriff Mack, but to leave us, what's your final thoughts to leave us with on this day in particular?
Look, the solution for America is still the same. I'm so grateful that Trump won. I went to a fundraiser. I donated to his campaign. I love what he's doing. God bless us. And we knew this was all going to happen to him. They're trying to impeach him. They're trying to get him. It's so stupid. The Democrats are overplaying their hand, obviously, but they don't care. The solution for America is still the Constitution and our foundation. We don't need to move forward. We need to go back. And there's the solution. And folks, we hand this to all of you on a silver platter at cspua.org. Become a member of our posse and help us help you become part of the solution.
Yes, it'll be a great stress reducer too, because we do get caught up emotionally so much in what's happening federally that we forget the most important thing that we need to do is take care of our home, take care of our local communities. And this is a fantastic way to really reduce stress. Like I said, don't worry about what's happening on the federal level. You're going to be more effective in your close circle. So do it right now, cspoa.org, sign up and support Sheriff Mack's great cause there. Thank you so much.
Love you, Christy. Thanks. We'll see you soon.
You too. Thank you so much. On that note of being prepared for anything, taking care of what's at home, I'm going to ask you to check out prepperbeef.com/klbeef. And that's a place that you can get shelf-stable meat, have on hand should the worst happen. You know, Trump's presidency has made life safer, but, you know, bad can still happen. We're seeing it. Whether it be the depravity of the Democrats or it be hurricanes, rise inflation, yes, even war. Right? There's all these threats that can turn life upside down. So it's not over. Trump's presidency slowed the decline, but the corruption doesn't disappear overnight. Supply chains can still break down. Government overreach is still a threat. The deep state spent decades building this. So it's been weakened, but not destroyed. The same people who spent their careers trying to tear America apart are still out there looking for the next moment to seize control. That's why you can't afford to assume life will always be safe. Easiest way to hijack a population is to control their food. So if you have to rely on the government to eat, then you are at their mercy. You need to get free of that. Get free from rising beef costs. Get free from being dependent on them. You certainly don't want their meat that would be filled with mRNA and everything else. This is from military owned and ranches here in Texas. You can trust this meat. They even have now chicken and ground beef and other things like that. But go to prepperbeef.com/KLBeef and you can stock up. You can use promo code KLBeef15 there, and that helps support the show as well. Got to quickly get through my verse of the day. It's from Habakkuk 2:4. See, the enemy is puffed up. His desires are not upright, but the righteous person will live by his faithfulness. If you want to continue on the biblical conversation, join me on Locals. Go to ChristyLeeTV.locals.com or just search Christy Lee TV there on Locals. I'm posting shows. Raw Faith is what it's called. It's a daily devotional show, just about 15 minutes each day to get into the word, worship, and fellowship. So hope to see you there. Well, thanks again for watching, and don't forget to spread the word and share with friends. Get free with Christy Lee now on Lindell TV.